USU. I got my undergrad and master's degree there in biology, but I emphasized in entomology and specifically aquatic entomology. I did my undergraduate research in American Fork Canyon, and I know you guys have been down there studying a couple rare stoneflies, which I'll be interested. We'll be looking at stoneflies in a second. And then I did my master's work in Mongolia, looking kind of cataloging stoneflies. There's not a lot of work that's been done over there, so we drove all over and caught lots of different stoneflies. What do you guys know so far about, what do anybody of you guys know about bugs, about insects in the street?
Hey, why don't we just walk right over here and we'll go.
Let's say I kicked over, let's say I grabbed a rock in there. How many insects do you guys think I would find on just an average rock in that stream? Let's just hear some guesses.
20.
2 or 3?
30.
30?
32.
32.
Depends on
Okay,
the insect
you're all
species.
kind of low.
100?
62.
So we take a sampler normally that's about this big, a square foot. And in that sample we take about 8 of them. We average 1,000 bugs. So that's a lot of bugs. What do you think they're in there for? What's their purpose in the stream?
Trout food.
Trout food? That's a very good one. Huh?
Filter the water.
Filter in some ways.
Eat algae.
Eat algae. Yeah, so they're processing, especially this time of year, the leaves are falling in and they're cycling that all through the ecosystem. Are any of you familiar with any kinds of bugs? Any of you that are fly fishermen? Stoneflies, okay. Mayflies.
Caddis.
Caddis. You have an
Cairo.
entomology class, okay. Any others that they're missing? We've got our basic 3 are
Chironomids.
chironomids. Okay, so those are all the common names. So I'm just going to talk about some of the main ones we have. So I'm going to pass around this tray right here. So these are our main stream bugs. So in fast flowing water, this is what we typically have. So we've got some big stoneflies in here. Does anyone know how to tell a stonefly from different kinds? Two tails. Yeah, so stoneflies have 2 tails and they also have 2 claws. So that's how you can tell it a stonefly. Okay, so what would have 3 tails then? Any guesses? Mayflies. So mayflies usually have 3. Mayflies you can also tell because they have gills on their abdomen. And then the last kind, caddisfly, those are our main 3 kinds that we have in streams. Typically have no tails or not what you guys would call tails, and gills, and they often build cases. So I'm going to start passing these around, and I want you guys to talk about notice characteristics that you see on those. So what are some things that bugs would need to survive underwater?
Gills.
Gills? So what do gills look like in a fish? They're up here. We've got a lot of blood vessels going through them. You might not recognize, but in the stoneflies especially, their gills are actually hair. It just looks like they're hairy. Gills are just any way that you can increase surface area to increase oxygen exchange over that. So that's one of the main features that they have to survive underwater. Any other characteristics that you think would be useful for staying underwater? What about if the water's really fast? So claws are one thing. If the water's really fast, how are you going to stay on that rock? Huh?
Lots of feet.
Yeah, lots of feet. So you could have hundreds of feet to hold on and grab on.
Be really
But
flat.
these are insects, so they only have 6. That's another good one. Be really flat. So there's one kind of mayfly that's in here that's like almost
flat.
totally flat. Another way is some will also have kind of suckers. Some of them are made from their gills. Other ones actually have, there's one kind of fly that we don't have in here that has an actual, it feels like a sucker. It'll grab onto you. Let me think. So we've established that bugs are fish food. So how many bugs would you say a fish would need to eat? So we talked about 8 of these, we find 1,000 bugs.
A lot.
A lot? How do they go about catching bugs? Those of you that have observed? Yeah, so they come up to the top, that's one way. So when a mayfly or something emerges, they can come up to the top and grab them as they're emerging. That's when they're really vulnerable. They also just kind of sit in the drift with their mouths open, so they just face upstream, mouth open, and things just kind of flow in. We didn't have one of our nets, but basically we measure that just with a small circular net that we just leave in the river for a set number of times, and we see how many bugs pass through that net. Another way is that they can kind of, if they're really hungry or if they're having difficulty finding food in other ways, they can kind of rustle up the rocks and dislodge bugs. A lot of these bugs, when they are sitting on the rock, they're pretty happy, and then they get disturbed and they just let go. That's their technique, is to just move. Rather than trying, hunker down, they just let go and drift downstream. So then they're, again, available as prey in that way. The main thing that we use bugs for in our lab is actually not for fish. We do some fish work, but we do a lot more water quality work. So what's unique about water insects is they're really diverse. There's lots of different kinds. Same as with terrestrial insects, but you have a lot better luck basically catching a ton at once. And so you can get a pretty good picture of the community, see how many species are there, what types are there. And with aquatic bugs, they've basically all been assigned what's called a tolerance value, which means how tolerant they are of pollution or lack of oxygen in different conditions. And so we use that, each bug basically gets a little number, and we can do a pretty simple math equation to compute the overall health or quality of a stream. And so we can compare this stream to that, a little farther upstream. Maybe we know that in one area there's been some mining, or we suspect that there's been a problem with an algal bloom or something like that. And so we can use the bugs as a pretty cheap way to get in and quickly compare the communities, compare these different statistics that we have, and get an overall picture of what's going on. Do you guys have any questions so far? Joe, do you want to fill in any gaps that I've been leaving? I've just kind of been talking.
Well, just to pick on you fish heads, the reason why don't we use fish as good bioindicators? Why wouldn't a fish be a good bioindicator? I don't want to pick too much on the fish.
They're diverse.
Yeah, they're not as diverse. So there's nothing wrong with fish, but do we have, how many species of fish in the Logan River? Six or so. And how many species do you think we have of insects in the Logan River? More than that is the correct answer. Probably not the most precise, but yeah, more than that. So we've got there's probably about 150 species, I think, in here, and generally we take them just at genus level. So we have more of an assemblage to look at. So they are like what Sarah was saying, they're very speciose. So we can use and they have shorter life cycles than a fish. So like a fish can live for more than a couple of months or a season, whereas insects a lot of times some insects are very short-lived, and some invertebrates like clams, for instance, can live for a very long time. So we know a lot about their life histories and their life cycles, and we also know that there's quite a few of them, so we can use those. This is kind of on a course level, but we can use that information to make some generalizations or categorizations of the health of the watershed. Okay.
Okay, and we also have some pond bugs here. You guys are going to get a chance to look at them in just a second, but just so you're exposed to a couple different kinds. I'll start this on one side. So here, you're going to be the spokesperson for the class. What do you think that is when it's an adult?
Mayfly?
No.
It's got teeth.
Okay, look at its head. What does its head look like? You guys have one too, so you can look at it.
Here. Did everybody get a look at this one?
Look at the top and the bottom.
I did.
So
But
it's
I
got
wanna
these
look
big
again.
eyes on either side. It's actually a dragonfly or damselfly larva. So not a lot of people know that, but dragonflies and damselflies live in ponds until they emerge, and then they're pretty big. So most of these bugs live, 6 months to a couple years in the stream, and then they're only adults for a couple months after that. They just basically reproduce and die. So other pond bugs that are coming around, we've got water striders, which you guys are probably familiar with. Also a couple different little crustaceans. Let me see what else is in here. And some beetles and some snails and stuff. So we don't use ponds as much for water quality to tell kind of the overall health of an area, but we can look at the species and just kind of get a taxa list of what's in there, what's, again, viable for fish food, and just kind of what's cool, I would say. Anything about ponds you would add?
No, maybe we would talk about the challenges between living in a pond and living in a stream.
Yeah. So, what's different about fast water versus slow water?
More oxygen.
More oxygen. And so, in fast water, the water's moving, circulating the oxygen, adding oxygen into it. In ponds, we typically have an anoxic environment, or anoxic, or just less oxygen environment. A lot of what kind of adaptations would you need to live in a pond with less oxygen in it?
You have to be a good swimmer.
You have to be a good swimmer. How come?
Because that's your mode of transportation. In streams, you don't have to crawl around on the rocks and stuff.
Okay.
It's, to get food, you don't have to move as far, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So these dragonflies in here, actually, they have a really cool adaptation. They have their mouth is basically like my arm right here. It's hinged like this. It's basically a giant spoon. They can use it to propel themselves through the water, so they push it like this, and it just, you guys are here, snatch a little crustacean with its mouth. What would you need to do? What kind of adaptations would you need to be able to breathe? Have you guys ever seen mosquito larvae kind of on the top of a pond? So they're all at the top. Why would they be at the top?
They're closer to the air.
Closer to the air. They actually have little kind of straws on their back ends that they can stick up out of the water. So they're not even breathing, they're not taking the oxygen out of the water. They're breathing straight from the air. So that's something that a lot of pond creatures have. What were you going to say, Joe? Okay. Some of them also, like beetles, are part terrestrial, part aquatic, so they can get in and out of the water, and that's not as big of an issue with them, or they can get out for a certain period of time. Or you've got water striders, which just stay on top, so they're not down in the water as much, or they can get out for a short time. Okay, I think we're going to let you guys look at our trays of bugs that we've already gotten out, and if we have time, we can also let you guys hop in and catch them for yourself.
Sounds good.
Okay?
This is from the Logan River here. There's a big stonefly here. This is Hesperoperla pacifica, big predator. It's like one of the big meaty ones in the river. Good fish food. And then these are from the ponds over across the street. You can see right there is a damselfly. We put some of this stuff in here. There's a bunch of these little like almost seed-looking things swimming around in here. These are amphipods. They're a crustacean. This guy right here, I don't know if you all noticed the water strider. It's a Gerridae. So while we're standing here looking around, I have two different types of nets here. This is a kick net, and this one we use or it's a D net or a qualitative sampling net. So we use this one a lot of times just to pick around and find all the different species, so we can look at the quality of our species list. And then that one, what do you think, if this one's for looking at trying to find everything, if you're trying to find everything and you really can't say, I don't want to give this away, what do you think this one's for?
Specific bugs.
Yeah, all those are right, but look, like, what do you think about this right here, this frame? Known size, right? So with this, we can put it down in the benthos like that, and we can pick all this stuff up and we can quantify exactly how many insects are present in a known area. So for some areas there might be just a few insects, and some there might be more. And now that's another variable, if you will, or value that we can use to assess the condition of the waterway. I just thought I'd throw that in there since we have these nets. You can look through this. And yeah, just noticing that. Or if you want to go mess around in the stream, you can, or we can go across the street and get muddy. But it looks like you're the one ready to get in the water.
That was my plan.
Okay, all right.
I've got some pipettes and magnifier if you want to.
Okay, so you guys can dig around in there and ask any questions. If you ask me what this is, that is what I do. I'll tell you what it is.
I've also got some keys too if you want to put
Oh, yeah.
Just of all the different kinds. Let's see. river on one
I'm
side.
gonna get out of your guys' way.
I had a question about the penny bug or the water skipper. Where does that? Does it start underneath the water like the caterpillar does, and then hatch and then start skipping on top?
The water strider you're talking about?
Water strider.
Yeah, that insect.
The rock,
Right,
they feel threat.
and they'll drift. Yeah. A lot of them have a sensory organ, or they have some way of sensing the presence of fish through, like when fish respirate, they release certain like ammonia and things like that. And they've done some pretty interesting studies where streams that have high salmonid content, drift is a lot less decreased a lot more, and drift will only take place at night when they're not as visible. But if there is less salmonids or no salmonids or other predators, drift will be more throughout the day. Yeah, they just let go. If you like ever fish the salmon fly over on Blacksmith, they're terrible swimmers. Like, and so when they drift, when they let go, and in a nymph stage, in a larval stage, they're just open for predation. So they generally spend most of their life underneath a rock eating bait.
Yeah, see, that's what I think. I think that crawl under a rock.
Right.
That's a Michigan name for it.
Right.
To me, that's like almost like they're just going in shock.
Right.
Because
Right.
they're just floating in the water. That's fish food right there.
One little plug I'd like to make. Dr. Lukey asked if we would just let you know that we do hire people, students, to work in our lab, and we also have a class that is taught every spring. It's a 5,000 level class. It also has graduate students at the 6,000 level in there, and so it's a aquatic macro invertebrates. I teach the lab, and then Dr. Scott Miller teaches the lecture part. So it's every spring if you guys are interested.
Yeah, so what do you do if someone, like a student undergrad is trying to get a job? What kind of...
Come into our lab, VNR 160, and we post jobs usually it's a basic tech job, so you get things like that, a big mess, and you get a microscope and you pick out the invertebrates and you put them in their appropriate orders, and then those jars come, they get put in little vials, and then I look through the vials and identify all the things in the vials. Come in this, like, beginnings of the semester, we do a lot, like looking for folks. Right now, we don't think we have any openings. We're trying to possibly fill a position right now, but just come in, give the resume to either Matt Tagg, myself, or this woman, Erin Anthony. And
beginning of the semester?
yeah, or you could do it right now if you want to come by and just drop off, say, hey, I'm interested in working sometime when you have a position available. I'm in watershed science. Is that what you do in watershed science? GIS. To use in watershed science?
Yeah, well, physical geography.
Physical geography.
So my major is physical geography. So I'm trying to leave it open, but I definitely want to narrow it down and get some, even if I have to volunteer and stuff, I want to get some training and stuff.
But this is we do use GIS. We have a GIS guy. Generally, most of our stuff is picking bugs up.
Come out, they will split. They're all growing their wings in here, so there's like these little triangles on their backs, basically. Same with the stoneflies.
Grab a
and the
net and go in
mayflies.
if you want.
And they're growing their wings in there, so their wings are like all bunched up in there, and then they'll pop out and you basically pump up their wings with their blood.
We've got more.
So they'll pump it up and then they'll get solid.
Bring some nets over. Man. Are you guys fishery students or?
Is there a stonefly over here somewhere?
No, because this is all pond stuff. There's some stoneflies over here, though, some pretty big ones.
Sweet.
Yes.
We backpack in and
In
bugs.
streams?
Alright.
Huh?
In streams?
yeah. So right south of the subway, actually.
Okay,
Been
yeah,
down
no,
there,
that's
yeah.
it. Have you guys ever done anything at like the Sand Hollow Reservoir? Like they've got like a, I don't know, swimmer's itch there or something?
I haven't. We tend to do a lot more stream stuff because streams are you can do more quantitative sampling, which is better for doing statistical
If
analysis.
anybody wants to go mess around in the river, not much So that place left, there's no interstitial space, no fusion, no gap on the velocity of the water. Down here, we got great bridges to take to the next one.
Are you taking a movie for yourself or for the school?
No, this is for Chris. They have an online. It's like class for this, and so he makes me come on the field trip.
Almost look like put that in the sun. See, they almost look like pine needles.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Those are unioidae caddisflies. Yeah, and so this rock was sitting like this in the water. And these guys attach themselves underneath here, and they get out of the current, and then they filter feed. They're passive feeders. They're things that wash over them and they fly. It is a lazy way, but it's efficient. You know, if you're patient.
So is it just like little strands?
Yeah, so they're kind of stuck on there.
They kind of poke their heads out too.
Yeah, they'll poke their heads out, and with their legs, they have filtering hairs on their legs. And those filtering hairs will pick up small little diatoms and anything that comes their way. So they're very...
Does that hurt them to pick a head like that?
It might. But we'll put them in there.
They're not gonna do anything to you.
Just pick up another. Okay.
So she said there's like 1,000 bugs on these.
There can be. I mean, look at this rock right here. I mean, if you look at this surface here, there's probably about 22 dozen maybe right on that. And then if you were to like look around here, and that's what we can see with our eyes.
So, because this, when you brought it out, it almost looked like it was moss or plant rock. How do you tell the difference?
Between an insect and plants?
Yeah.
I guess practice.
It's good.
Yeah, it is. It's a microscope is really helpful. After a while, you get to a point where you can tell what things are by their shape. Yeah, this is really small stoneflies moving around right there. Those are chlorophyllids. Trichoptera, they fulfill like most of the different functional feeding groups. There's some that are predators. Most of them are will be grazers or collector-gatherers. Yeah. So this guy right here, this Hypocycidae, this guy is a collector-gatherer, and what he'll do is he's doing but he makes a net, he makes a silk net, and then he sits in a retreat, and then as soon as he gets out of the net, he's opportunistic. If there's small diatoms or pieces of fish, he'll eat anything. Yeah. Here's a really cool caddisfly. I stole your find there. It's a Hydrocycidae. Hydrocyce is the genus. And it's a collector-gatherer and a fixed retreat maker. So he'll sit underneath a rock. He's trying to get underneath there right now.
Going backwards?
Yeah, you can see his gills right there, the respiration. But they make this, they make silk. They're closely related to moths, and they make their fixed retreat, their little house, and then in front of their house they put a net. They cast a net. And one thing that's really fascinating is the spacing of the mesh size in the net is determined about how fast the water is moving through it. Because they don't want to have a really tight net if you got really silty, fast-moving water, because it'll just rip it out. So they make a bigger net. And then they just sit there and wait for things to collect on the net, and then they come and scrape it off and collect and gather it and eat it. Yeah.
Almost like a spider.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So stoneflies like this one, this is Hesperoperla pacifica, and that's a predator, really good at moving around. You can see he doesn't have to go backwards. Oh, that's cool. That's a Hesperogenea. We'll talk about that guy in a minute. So this guy is a crawler. They'll crawl around and search out his food, and he's got huge mouth parts, able to eat it.
Would he like run around and eat these guys?
Yeah, those guys are probably not as appetizing as somebody like this. This
Yeah.
is a mayfly. And notice this body shape on this mayfly. I don't know if you can see it, but the head is really wide and flat.
Yeah.
These guys live on top of the rocks, so they're morphologically adapted to handle strong velocities. If he's living on top of the rock, what do you think he's eating? He's not a predator. He's going to be... Go ahead.
Sifting?
Maybe some of the plant material.
Yeah, he's going to eat like the biofilm that forms. He's going to scrape off, or she's going to scrape off the algae and things like that. Any other cool bugs you guys find? Pick up find one around. More of the same here. More of those caddisflies. But some of these caddisflies are up on top of the rock. Interesting. They're kind of all over the rock. So this is a spring-fed system. We'll go on a tangent here. It's a good time to go on a tangent. Spring-fed systems generally have their what they call like their temperature regime, if you will. Like it does not fluctuate very much from winter to summer. It's coming out of the ground about 5 to 6 degrees centigrade. So do you think you'd find more insects in something that's really stable, or more insects in something like the Logan River that has a little more fluctuation in temperature?
Probably more fluctuation.
Right. Why do you think that?
Variety.
Yeah, variety. So everybody's got to have a job, right? And if you have a diverse job market, you're going to have more jobs. And if you got something that's really homogeneous in your job market, like if everybody's working at KFC, there's just only so much chicken you're going to eat, right? So if you have, so the job market's better out in the river. This is, kind of, going, it's a little bit of hyperbole here, but yeah, right. So in these spring-fed systems, if you notice when I pick these rocks up, we found like one mayfly, found a couple of stoneflies, but mostly populated by this one type of caddisfly.
So, like the bug lab, you guys would come to a stream like this and take a sample of all the bugs and count them and see. Did you try and find out like I don't know temperature or like
we take
health of the stream?
Sure, we do some basic water chemistry. The temperature, dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen is kind of hard to get a real accurate reading on, but temperature, pH, conductivity, those are some of our basic information we'll take. We'll also do like gradient, and we'll also look at the size of the rocks. And so we'll do random samples where with a gravelometer, we'll measure the 100 rocks.
Yeah.
That's real fun. Spin your afternoon, putting rocks through a drift, great. But one of the things that you can tell about rocks, and another thing that we do is we'll scrape the periphyte off them, because in some rivers, if they don't have, like this one, the amount of water coming through doesn't really change from season to season. So a lot of these rocks don't always turn, so they get a lot more periphyte on them. This river actually does. This stream will actually, in the spring, with snow melt, get quite a bit more velocity than here in the spring. This thing is going pretty good. With some rivers, like below dams, for instance, the flow is pretty much the same all year round. Yeah. And so one of the things we'll do is we'll measure how much periphyte is there. Because periphyte or biofilm, what grows on the rocks, is a kind of double-edged sword. It can provide food for the insects, but if there's too much, the insects can't really get caught up in it.
Can you see it? Or is it like a film that you feel?
Well, this one is a film you can feel, but in some rivers you'll have things like that right there cover your whole rock.
Be excessive.
Right, and that makes it really difficult for these caddisflies to attach because they can't attach to that. But something like an amphipod, which we've got some of those trays over there, loves to live in that.
Now they were pooping up there. Would that be a completely different stream and completely different bugs living in it then?
Right.
So
Yeah.
something like that going on?
Yeah. Cattle have the effect of one, they'll graze like the riparian zone, and so just by walking through it, they disturb the soil around the stream, and And so when it rains and things like that, you get a lot more input from the riparian zone. So you'll have a lot more turbidity in the water, a lot more suspended sediment in the water, which can create some obstacles in respiration. Also, feeding basically interrupt their life cycle or their job. It kind of interferes with how they get their food. Also with the, like I said, with the breathing and things like that. That's a good question. I mean, cattle can have an impact. That's why they do those studies where they exclude the cattle from the riparian zone and see how it affects like fish spawning. They're doing that. What's that? Right. Yeah, there's no shade because the willows get eaten back. All right. How's it going over there, Sarah?